Good morning and good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to this webinar on the illicit financial flows. Just to kickstart the webinar, my name is Alec Nyasuru from ESCAP here in Bangkok. I would like to invite Ms. Rike Hansen, who is the Chief of Section for the Economic and Environment Statistics Unit in Statistics Division of ESCAP, to make a few opening remarks. And I'll hand over to you, Rike.
Okay, thank you very much, Alec, and a warm welcome here to all of you to today's webinar on measuring illicit financial flows. As many of you are aware, illicit financial flows can stem from a wide range of activities, legal, semi-legal, illegal, and it spans from activities such as trade misinvoicing to tax avoidance, tax evasion, corruption, trafficking, etc. And by their very nature, this type of financial flows are not easy to measure. And that is reflected in the very, very little data that are currently available for the SDG indicator that's put in place to measure these financial flows, namely SDG indicator 16.4.1. Now, during the past couple of years, the first estimates, as inaccurate as they may be, they point to illicit financial flows, or IFFs, playing a significant role in economies around the world. And these first estimates are the results of groundbreaking efforts by a number of countries from several regions all over the world, together with the organizations that are co-organizing the webinar today. The efforts have included the development of conceptual frameworks by UNCTAD and UNODC, that are the custodian agencies for this SDG indicator, and then pilot work with countries in Latin America, Asia, and Africa, done in collaboration with ECLAC, ECA, ESCAP, and ESCWA. And some of these first estimates have actually been published early this year, and all depending on ongoing reviews, we certainly hope that more of these estimates will be published soon. But it's clear from the work that has been done over the past couple of years that more work is needed. And therefore, we were very happy, the co-organizers of projects so far in this space, when we learned that the United Nations have set aside funding for a new project to continue the efforts. And that is the reason that this webinar today is being organized. So efforts can continue and work is needed. It has been very clear from the lessons that have been learned so far that if we really want to accelerate the work and make sure that sustainable measures are made available, both more accurate ones, more estimates as such, and also estimates that are really responding to the need for developing policies to curb illicit financial flows, that this cannot be an undertaking done solely by the data producing agencies, but there is a need for more engagement with the data using agencies. And that is a major shift in the... Can I ask people to mute, please? Thank you. And these lessons point to a major shift in the design of the project activities going forward compared with the activities that have already been completed, and that is the involvement of policy agencies. We need to have the expertise from the economics expertise, the policy expertise from other agencies and ministries. We need to put in place a system where demand for data and estimates are expressed, and then we have statistical agencies together with policy ministries joining hands, working together across agencies to improve the availability and the accuracy of the measures, and ensure that these estimates are used to inform policies. And that is really the main shift that we are all looking forward to seeing during the implementation of this new project that is just coming online this year. I will stop these opening remarks now by thanking all the co-organizers of this webinar, ECA, ECLAC, ESCWA, UNCTAD, UNODC, and thank you all for the excellent collaboration so far. And we at ESCAP very much look forward to continuing that collaboration during the implementation of this new project. And with this, I'll hand over to my colleague at ECA. I see you have joined us, Jamal. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. On behalf of ECA, it's my utmost pleasure to welcome you all on board this exciting new project towards measuring and curbing illicit financial flows. We as the ECA, the journey on tackling IFF started in 2011 when we were mandated by the African Union and ECA Ministers of Finance in 2010 to act as a secretariat of the high-level panel on illicit financial flows from Africa. The focus of the panel, which was led by former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, was on assessing the magnitude and development impact of illicit financial flows. So the high-level panel highlighted the urgent need for solid evidence on the volumes and the impact of IFF, but particularly in the out of the 21 recommendations, there were two relevant recommendations for our discussion today, which were: one, study potential methodologies for addressing illicit financial flows, and also ask ECA to produce operational measures against illicit financial flows. So dear colleagues, in line with these recommendations and to support the Agenda 2030 attainment, ECA has since been working with African countries to address illicit financial flows in various capacities, including what we called in the UN Development Account Project 11, in collaboration with UNCTAD to statistically estimate illicit financial flows.
Around 160.
Oh. Through an agreed upon methodology that produces robust, consistent, and comparable estimates. So as you probably most of you know that in October 2020, the conceptual framework for the statistical measurement of IFF led by UNCTAD and UNODC as custodian agencies was published. And then shortly after that, the methodological guidelines on tax and commercial IFF were also finalized with these resources, tools, and guidelines. We kick-started the implementation of the project in 12 pilot countries. If I allow me to say them quickly: Angola, Benin, Burkina Faso, Egypt, Gabon, Ghana, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Zambia in 2021-2022. An important event which I want to share with you is that in recognition of the progress made on IFF measurement in African pilot countries, both ECA and UNCTAD were commended by the 45th session of the Conference of the African Ministers of Finance. on piloting the agreed methodologies for measurement of IFF. So the Conference of Ministers called upon the ECA and development partners to develop a work plan for capacity training on tax-related matters, as well as to build the capacity of African countries to tackle the gaps in institutional architecture. And this with the view to developing their ability to track, measure, and report on the evolution of IFF under SDG indicator 16.4.1, but also to devise measures to help IFF. So this new project that we meeting to kickstart and discuss is a continuation of the progress already made in relation to measuring IFF. The project will deepen the measurement of IFF, but also strengthen policy environment for effective implementation of tools to curb IFF. The project have two major objectives. Let me go through them quickly. To strengthen the statistical capacity of selected countries across regions to measure IFF, while increasing awareness of the globally agreed definitions, concepts, methods, and tools. And then to strengthen the capacity of the beneficiary countries to develop evidence-based policy responses to curb IFF and strengthen domestic resource mobilization. So, as you know, this is the project now is a partnership between 4 UN regional commissions, ECLAC, ESCAP, ECA, and ESCWA, and the 2 custodians of indicators 16.4.1, UNCTAD and UNODC. The implementation will be undertaken in close collaboration with the already existing national technical working groups. And for you who are not aware of this, these were, all institutions, state institutions that were formed, all the institutions that are working on illicit financial flows. But where these do not yet exist, participating countries are encouraged to agree on relevant national platform through which coordination and stakeholder engagement will be strengthened. And I'm glad that we have some countries that will share their experience with their technical working group. So colleagues, just before, may I conclude now by thanking all the pilot countries for their commitments, hard work, and continued efforts in the statistical measurements of IFF, and also to thank again UNODC, UNCTAD, and our regional commissions. And I take this opportunity to reiterate ECA's commitment to support the advancement of this significant agenda. And thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jamal. And indeed, this is becoming a bit of a global movement here going forward. So it's excellent to see so many of the collaborating entities here, both on the list of participants and on screen right now. Thank you so much, Jamal. And back to you, Alec. Alec, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ricky and Jamal, for your encouraging remarks and giving some context to this project. So before we go to the second agenda item, I can see there are 7 of us, and I know we can't really introduce each other individually, otherwise we'll be here for another 2 more hours. But we found another way to introduce ourselves. So we just put up 2 questions, and I'll ask my colleague Anastasia to just put up a link in the chat through a Mentimeter, and then we'll just ask you to indicate where you're coming from. Yeah.
Thank you, Alec. Dear participants, we are going to invite you to participate in a short Mentimeter poll about where you come from, a few questions to get to know you. But first of all, try to join this Mentimeter poll by the code provided on the screen. We will shortly also post it in the chat. It seems like we have a chat issue, but I'll try to scan this QR. Okay, if you can join, please press the like button so we would see that you are there. And then we will move on to the next question. Thank you. We see 18 participants. Okay.
Sorry, there is no chat in this meeting, right?
Right. I don't see a chat. We are currently trying to sort this out. Yes. A moment. Okay, thank you. And for those who could join, this is some instruction for interpreting, translating the text if because we do not have interpretation in this session. So if you wish to translate on your computer and phone, you can enable automatic translation. Just in case you would like to do that, I'm sure you are aware those tools exist. I'm going to move on to the question that we would like you to answer. We would like you to try and type in what country or international agency you represent. We should be able to see your answers when you type them in. So we will have a better picture as to who the participants of this webinar are. Thank you. Good to see some countries representatives. You can type the answer in any language. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Alex, should we move on?
Yes, please. Let's move to the next question.
And we also have another sort of question for you. As long as the next item on our agenda is going to be about the methodological guidelines and the measurement, we would like to ask you a question whether you are familiar with the conceptual framework for illicit finance published by our custodian agencies. Thank you. We all can see the results. That are actually familiar with the document. And many also are aware that it exists, but have not yet familiarized themselves, which this upcoming project gives us the opportunity to. Thank you. Alik, would you like to comment on the results?
Yes, of course. The response has not been very impressive as such. You've had 26 responses, but most of the people responding are quite familiar with the conceptual framework. Nobody said they are not familiar with it. Others said yes, they know it exists, but not very familiar with it. Yeah, so there is some level of awareness. I think in general terms, I think the numbers have now gone up to 22. So thanks, colleagues. This was just to make sure we have an understanding of the existence of the methods that our colleagues in UNODC and UNCTAD actually develop and underpin the core structure of this work we are doing. So we are now going to proceed to the next agenda item that is on sharing experiences. So in this session, we will have 3 countries that are going to share the experiences in brief. So we are going to start with Bangladesh, where we have Mr. Kamar Hossain, who is an additional director at the Bangladesh Financial Intelligence Unit. Our colleagues there, their work involved on crime-related IFFs. After Bangladesh, I'll call upon Nigeria, and then we'll go to Kyrgyzstan. So can I ask Mr. Kamar to give us an insight? He indicated that he will speak straight without a PowerPoint.
Thank you, Alik. I think you can hear me.
At least I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, UNODC and ESCAP for giving me the floor to share our experience in measuring illicit outflow from the drug and drug trafficking. We can recall that in illicit financial flow in Bangladesh is actually widely discussed issues since from 1990s because of the severeness of corruption and related with the capital flight. And it got momentum when we saw some study done by UNODC, Global Financial Integrity, Justice Network, and other research organizations. And it also have attract attention at the policy level in Bangladesh, and that was actually reflected in our national strategy paper, that is a national strategy for prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing. We can recall that this illicit curbing illicit outflow actually comes in the national strategy paper in 2015, 2019, and as well as 2015, 2017, and 2019, 2021. So it is actually a big concern for Bangladesh, and that's why we were looking how we can actually measure this illicit outflow, and then we find that SDG comes with one of the goal. And as well as we also found that the UNODC and ESCAP, they become custodian, and they come with the methodology that actually that for that we were waiting for. And accordingly, we have requested the UNODC and ESCAP to conduct to share, and we express our interest to them, and finally we received technical support from UNODC in measuring illicit outflow from drug and drug trafficking. With this background, now I want to share our experience that we have gathered from the last project. Dear participant and STEM expert, we must say that the project actually actually we are looking for, and we are eagerly waiting for this kind of project, as I have mentioned. So, and after the project, after completion of the project, then we requested again to join the other next round of the project, that is illicit outflow from commercial activities. So first of all, I want to thank Ms. Diana and David for their relentless effort, patience, and their flexibility that they have shown during the measurement of illicit outflow from drug traffickings. Uh, because it was actually a very challenging part for them as well as for us, because and the main reason is that the information availability of the information. So I will share some of the challenges on these issues. But before that, I want to mention that the project was well planned, and the national coordination mechanism worked very well. And we want to thank the stakeholders. We were able to engage 23 stakeholders under an umbrella, and they have done a lot. They share a lot of information, but it was not actually a structured way. Anyway, but they have shared a lot of information, and it also strengthened our interagency cooperation, and it also helped to understand the importance of their jobs and of the other stakeholders, those who are fighting drug and drug trafficking related issues. The challenges that we have faced during the project, firstly, that was a pandemic time, COVID-19 pandemic. It was actually hampered. It delayed the process. We could not start in person. We have to start virtually, and we have to conduct several workshops virtually. So for coordination, for understanding, for networking, I think virtual platform is very good, but in person always gives some additional mileage. But we missed those additional mileage due to pandemic. And another big challenges was the data insufficiency, and in some cases absence of data at all. Because in Bangladesh, what we know is that Bangladesh is not a producer of drug. Bangladesh is the consumer, and to some extent, Bangladesh used as a transit point for drug trafficking. So when we start collecting information, that we at the time we found that the agencies, they have a lot of works they have done, but they did not maintain all the data in a I should call it systematic manner. So this is one of the issues, and some data or some information are missing, like price is very difficult part. I think our expert will share that part maybe, but when we collect this information, we actually face of challenges and the heterogeneity of the statistics that they maintain. And as I have mentioned, that Bangladesh, sometimes Bangladesh used as a transit country, but we don't have the statistics on drug export related information. So this is actually a very big missing part of our end. And another challenge that we have faces is that several law enforcement agencies are involved with fighting against drug and drug trafficking, but the law enforcement agency, they were reluctant in sharing information when we actually try to collect those information. And that's why our expert, Diana and David, they shows their I must say that utmost flexibility to accommodate all the all this kind of problems, and as well as devise the methodology or some way accommodate all these issues. So now I want to share what lesson we have learned from this project. Actually, the project, this is the first time that we have done it. And I think our law enforcement agencies and other stakeholders, they were actually find a scope to evaluate their activities, how they are actually doing their job and how they are preserving their information. So this is the one issue. And another issue is the awareness raising among the stakeholders about the preservation of data, and as well as the data management of data, and interagency cooperation that we have. I have already mentioned that through this project, especially the drug and drug related agencies, they become very familiar with BFIU's activities. FIU is the Financial Intelligence Unit, deals with the money laundering cases. So they become more aware about our job, how we work and how we can contribute their activities. So they have learned this, and as well as the capacity building, because some workshop was done in the project. So we were benefited from those workshops, and our law enforcement agencies as well as other agencies, they become very aware about this illicit financial flows from the traffic. About the result, I think I should not comment on it because we are yet to receive the final report. So I will not to discuss these issues, but I want to share that what we want to achieve and what we have already achieved. I have already shared the lesson learned, but the thing is that, well, we have received we have received one statistics, one amount, but what does it mean, and how the people will respond, the Bangladesh authority, what should be the policy direction or policy regarding the illicit outflow. I think this is the critical part, and as our colleagues from ESCAP and as well as CA mentioned that only the data providing agencies, they should not be actually use of this estimation, but the data user, the policymakers should be aware and should take policy measures to curb the illicit outflow. So in this regard, I think I must mention that from the political aspect or high level attention, I think this is actually always very widely discussed topic, and there is some concern in the high level. So when we receive all the information and when we have the estimation, then that will be actually help us to formulate the policies. And in this regard, I think I should mention that as we are consumer and as well as the exporting countries for the drug, so the transnational cooperation and international cooperation is very important here, especially the Myanmar. They are the main drug producer, and we are the consumer of their drugs. So we need close cooperation with Myanmar as well as as India, because they are also producing some popular drug, those who are consumed in Bangladesh. So this is one thing, and another issue is the while we conducting the research, we also found some interagency lack of interagency cooperation. So I think we should fine tuning of those parts. And another issue is that I think our legal framework is very good, and the organization, especially the narcotics control department, they are getting more human resources. So from the policy aspect, I think there are enough attention in these particular issues. So when we'll receive the final report, I think that will work for the policymakers, and that will help our policymakers to make informed policies. I think that's all from my end. I should stop here. If you have any question, I will be more than happy to answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamara, for giving the insights and the experiences from Bangladesh perspective. And if anyone has any questions, we'll hold on to those. Just type them in, put them in the chat box, and then we'll revert to you. May I now invite Anne Ibrahim from the National Bureau of Statistics of Nigeria to share us the experiences. I give you 8 minutes. Yeah. Anne.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Alec. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Are you going to share your slides, or you want us to share?
Please go ahead, share. You can share.
Okay, just a second.
Okay, so while you're at it, good morning once again. My name is Anne Ibrahim, and I work with National Bureau of Statistics. I bring you greetings from my Statistician General, Mr. Adeyemi Adeniro, and the TWG team from Nigeria. Thank you so much for allowing us and giving us this privilege to make this presentation. So, Alec, I find it so hard. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, we're just trying to.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. So I'm just going to give a brief update on the Nigerian experience based on the measuring the illicit financial flows. And next slide, please. Okay, so in my presentation, I'm just going to do give us a brief of what the process we followed, the different meetings that were held. We integrated the technical working group for the IFFs, the different trainings that were conducted to build a capacity, and then the results not in details in terms of numbers, but more or less kind of output of the process, the challenges we faced, the lessons learned, and the next step. So in terms of the processes that we followed, what we did was, next slide, please. We did a constituted a technical working group. So for Nigeria, there was inauguration of the interagency committee, which was like more or less a high level beef. That was done in May in 2019. Then the technical working group came into being after that. And then we did a lot of meetings with the interagency committee on combating the IFFs, trying to build, sensitize Nigerians on what the whole IFFs was all about. And there was a lot of meetings with National Bureau of Statistics, the head of the Statistician General, then the RCO office, and the UN agency was also very supportive to introduce this interagency committee on combating the IFFs. This was done after the inauguration in October 2021. Next slide, please. So this is just a list of the MDAs. We have about 10 MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies that constitute the technical working group for IFFs. People from CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. We have the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, that's ICPC, the National Bureau of Statistics, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, the Nigerian Customs Service, the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NAITI, then the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, the SDF, NFIU. These are just the members of the TWG. Next slide, please. So one of the things that was done during this, after the technical working group was constituted, was to do training on methodologies. I see Boyan here, Miroslav, Diana. A lot of training was done, for us from November to between November, December 2021. We tried to see the data availability, the review of it, which was done in between November 2021 to January. Then the selection of the methods. Majorly, we made selection based on available data. So wherever we could get data for was what prompted our selection of the methods. And we did tier 1, that's method 1, the profit shifting, and the tier 2 method, which is the partner country method. We did a pilot testing plan, and this was between December and January. And then we did a lot of training because, that time was COVID and all of that. A remote training was done, and in-person here in Nigeria was done also. Next slide, please. So for the method 3, what we did was during the data gathering process, we established that the data that we tried to identify the data that will be required for the transfer pricing disclosure forms and we found out that this was from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. There were a lot of concerns in terms of providing sensitive data because, of course, from the different multinational companies, it was decided by the TWG that we anonymize this data. Of course, the Statistics Act of 2007 has that closure of anonymity. We try to, shield confidentiality clauses there. Then we got data for 160 multinational companies. And this data captured more or less like 380 transactions over the period of 2018, 2019, 2020. Yes, there were a lot of missing data, but at least this was what we could get at that time. And we had to spend a lot of time in terms of cleaning the data, understanding the structure, because of course this is more or less a new terrain, and we needed to clean the data and understand the, the structure that it would take. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of the data that we got, in terms of the type of transaction and the different categories and all of that. So we plan to anonymize some of this information, so this is just a glimpse of the kind of data that we collect. Next slide, please. So for the method 3, we did a lot of training, like I said earlier on, in person and remotely. And estimation was done between March and May. And method 3, what we did was to divide it into 3A and 3B, and that was what we did. The 3A majorly is for IFFs, geographic risks approach, which helped us to identify the destination of the countries of transaction, appropriate levels of risks and vulnerability of the to the IFFs. Then the method 3, in terms of sensitivity of the reported profits, estimates, and profits functions. So we splitted the method 3 into 2. Next slide, please. And for method 3, going now into a little detail, for the 3A, it identified the different highest risk and vulnerability, considering that there are different partner countries and all of that. And then vulnerability in terms of reflecting the extent to which a country is at risk of illicit financial flow in each channel of cross-border economic or financial activity. Majorly, and this particular method uses data on corporate tax haven index, that's the CTHI, ranking between the largest contributors to tax abuse by the multinational companies. Calculated was by determining the weight, average haven or score of countries, partners, jurisdiction, the stock of flow relationship. Most of this technical part was done, of course, with Boyan, Miroslav, and then at that time we had a technical expert, Dr. Jide, who helped us in all this estimation, because this was more or less like a learning process for Nigeria and all of that. Next slide, please. And the results show that the transactions are remitted to different countries. So we found out that we don't have an accurate number, but we found out that the remission was not to one particular country. We found that there are different pockets of countries that had these different transactions. And the destination countries for such transfers were categorized based on vulnerability scores of each of the countries. So it's possible to identify the transactions that are more frequent transfer to countries that are aggressive tax havens. So that's how we're able to, kind of the approach that was used. There are some multinational corporations that exclusively make transfer to affiliates in countries that rank between 100 on the vulnerability score. So implying that the MNCs only make transfer to affiliates in aggressive tax havens. So basically that's the findings that we found, and then it was useful for the tax authorities for Nigeria and conducting such audits for the MNCs. Next slide, please. Okay, estimating the sensitivity and the scales of the IFFs, majorly, overall, you will find that for Nigeria, during the closing conference, we found out that other countries had, specific numbers and all of that. But for us, I think it was an issue of the sample of the data that we collected, and it was not robust enough, and the timing was quite challenging. So you'll see that we have a lot of narratives in our results and not numbers. So next slide, please. I don't know how much time I have left. So, okay, yeah, straight up to the challenges that the data that was required, was not in the form that it was collected by the agency. So the issue of structure, the issue of, harmonizing the data was a challenge. And then sometimes you will find that the data for compilation, for compiling other methods, considering that we have different methods, the data was just honestly, yes, the willingness was there, honestly, by the agency to provide the information. But in terms of structure, it was important that we had a particular structure. And then the inadequate knowledge of the statistical software, we had a challenge of that. And then that was also provided for us, but it was a challenge, giving us a short training on the startup. And then, of course, we needed more time to do this training and all of that. Then funding was also a challenge. Next slide, please. Lessons learned. So we found out that extensive data requirements and computation skills is it's available, but yes, of course, we need to build more capacity. And considering that we already have a structure in terms of the TWG, most of them are already on this call. We already have that on ground. It's easy to convey, to do this estimates in terms of synergizing and collaborating with one another. Proving that the data required are available and the methodology works for Nigeria. So data is required for tracking the IFFs for Nigeria is available, but we need to have a structure to make sure that we, can harmonize this information. And more work needs to be done to make sure that we get a final stage of estimating the IFFs for Nigeria. Next slide, please. For next steps, given the results we got, though it was more or less narratives, the PCM was easier in terms of the methodology. When it was presented to us, it was easier to use, it was easier to understand, given the timing, and for us, that's where we had data. Use the PFM to obtain estimates for IFF. So we needed to have more regular meetings, and then, of course, there was a lot of willingness. That's one of the things we found out, that the support is there in terms of political buy-in for the agencies, in terms of the way meetings were attended, and the participation and the collaboration amongst the agencies was there. The issue of we had to discuss the data gaps. We had to do back and forth. We needed to understand, how to get this information, to draw different templates, even though it still needs a lot of work. And there was a lot of collaboration between the Federal Ministry of Inland Revenue Service and the the Nigerian Customs Service. So support, we had to write to say, yes, Nigeria didn't come up with a final estimate for the IFFs, but we needed more support. We just needed to at least, identify and, get final numbers in terms of, tracking the IFFs for Nigeria and to report for the SDG 16.4. And then, of course, technical support, which was strong and very available. Going forward, it's required for us it's paramount for us to report on our IFFs. And of course, just encourage the collaboration and better understanding of the methods. It's very important. Next slide, please. So as a way of conclusion, I just want to reiterate again that the political will is there. NBS is ready to synergize, and this relationship has already been built. We need to just take it forward to the next level. The data should be more accessible and robust. So we found out that the data that is required for the IFF cannot be aggregate data. It has to be disaggregated. It has to be robust. We just want to encourage our partners that are on this call, our different the agencies, that the data will be anonymized and it will be used based on the Statistics Act. And of course, the scientific evidence, we know that it's a backbone for the estimation of IFFs for Nigeria, and it will help us to report on the SDG 16.4. And it's important that aside from PowerPoints, aside from the concept note, apart from the framework, it's important that for each country, for Nigeria, so for Nigeria, we have like a proper report to say this was the first phase for the pilot, and the second phase, or now that we're in on the second phase, it's important that aside from getting the numbers, how does these numbers translate to policy formulation to stop illicit financial flows in Nigeria? On that note, I want to say thank you. Yep. Thank you so much for your time. I think that's the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your detailed presentation and sharing what work you did in Nigeria. And apologies, we're still having a few technical hitch, but we'll proceed to the next presenter. We are going to invite Mr. Chingiz Bekenov. Chingiz Bekenov was a consultant for ESCAP, and he was involved in the work to estimate IFFs in Kyrgyzstan. So I'll give the floor to Chingiz.
Thank you, Alec. Hello, dear participants. Hello, dear colleagues. Hello, everyone. I would like to share our experience concerning IFFs estimating here in the Kyrgyz Republic. So please, next slide, please. So the pilot project on IFFs measurement in the Kyrgyz Republic was launched in the second half of 2021 with the assistance of ESCAP, and it was divided into two main stages. During the first stage, we determined main directors, main tools, as well as participants and methods of measurement. We also made some preliminary analysis on the availability of data, and during the second stage we made a preliminary measurement using the selected methods and taking into account the availability of data. We chose among proposed methods the following: partner country method, price filter method, and flows of offshore financial wealth. Also, taking into account our national specifics, national specifics of the Kyrgyz Republic, we decided to try to measure IFFs from railway export and as well as from remittances of labor migrants. So the first results of IFFs measurement in Kyrgyzstan were presented at the end of October 2022, and the final results of IFFs estimating were presented in early December 2022. Next slide, please. We were using data from while measuring IFFs from the UNCTAD database. Also, we were using data from National Statistical Committee, from National Bank, National Customs Service, and also we use some data from open sources from different researches and publications on the issue that we were measuring. Please, next slide. The main 4 state agencies were involved in the IFFs measurement process. Among them, National Statistical Committee, it was a focal agency. There were also State Financial Intelligence Service, National Bank, General Prosecutor's Office, State Tax Service, State Customs Service, Ministry of Internal Affairs, and State Service for Regulation and Supervision of the Financial Market. We conducted several meetings. It was several interagency cooperation where we discussed the estimation and the main direction of the IFFs measurement here in the Kyrgyz Republic. Next slide, please. So I will tell you some results that we found out while measuring IFFs here in the Kyrgyz Republic. So if you look at the chart, you can see that the largest source of IFFs for Kyrgyzstan is trade, and it is ranging between 7.7 and 11.3 billion dollars annually. We measured the period from 2017 till 2020. And also we saw that inward flow dominate in Kyrgyzstan, and the primary source of is final consumer. If we talk about alternative method, you can see at the chart that Kyrgyzstan is also subject to inward IFFs from illicit remittances, and estimated to range between 0.3 and 1.6 billion dollars annually in the period of 2014 to 2020. Also, we found that outward IFFs from offshore tax evasion are minor and did not exceed 0.2 million dollars annually. Next slide, please. So what challenges were that we faced? First of all, it was small level of awareness concerning methods of IFFs measuring among state agencies involved. Also, it was a problem of data availability because some data was not available due to the national legislation that protects banking, commercial tax, and other information. And of course, it was a problem in data sharing. It was weak interagency cooperation concerning data exchange, data sharing, due to the lack of a national legal mechanisms of IFFs measuring. Next slide, please. So what lessons we learned? First of all, not all the methods are applicable for Kyrgyzstan. Also, the proposed measurement methods need to be further developed, taking into consideration some national specifics or characteristics, and also the absence of certain data or information due to some secrecy and so on complicates the IFFs measurement using the proposed methods. And also the lack of internal legal mechanisms and tools for the full involvement of other state agencies, and not only National Statistical Committee, into IFFs measuring process. So next slide, please. And way forward, or what next we should do, what steps we should take next. We need first of all to adaptate IFFs measurement methods to national characteristics or conditions. Also, it is a question of capacity building. We need to conduct training events with the specialists from state agencies that are involved in IFFs measurement process. We also need to develop national entitlement mechanisms and tools for the further implementation of the proposed methods for IFFs measuring. And of course, we need to measure not only trade and tax IFFs, but also illicit financial flows from criminal activity, such as drug trafficking, human trafficking, and etc. So, next slide, please. I am finished. If you have some questions.
So if you have any questions, maybe now to all the 3 countries, please just raise up your hand. Okay. If not, we'll proceed to the next agenda item. Anastasia, you want to put up the Menti for the policy side?
Dear participants, here's our next question that has to do with policy implications of illicit financial flows. Please feel free to put in any thoughts that you have about why illicit financial flows are important for policymaking process. What can we get out of knowing about illicit financial flows and being able to assess them? Can you scan the QR or just go to menti.com and join with the code that you see displayed on the screen? You can put answers in any language. We see the first answers on the screen. We can see that most answers deal with the loss of revenue for the government budget. And reduce the loss of limited resources. We also see some answers addressing the problem of financing development. and combating the criminal activities. Alec, would you like to comment?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, there are a couple of responses that are coming in there. I think others are talking about revenue loss and the tax avoidance, issues of illegal sources of trade, how to fight it, and yeah, increasing revenue is all coming up. And also in terms of how to allocate more resources in terms of how we can address tax avoidance schemes. So yeah, so a lot of responses, I think, just underscoring the critical importance of why it is appropriate to measure illicit financial flows, but particularly more on how best to curb them, because they have those implications on financing for SDGs, their revenue aspect. So I think this actually provides a good, preamble to the next agenda item on the DA15 project, which Douglas from ECA will actually give some further insights. So thanks so much. I think we seem to all have a great understanding, and we can see a lot of interlinkages and why it is very important to really measure, but more how this could actually inform policy decision making and monitoring. So thank you very much for your responses. We'll now go to the next agenda item, and I'd like to invite Douglas to take lead, and then later on we'll have a reaction from Uzbekistan. Douglas, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alec, for giving me the floor. I will, in the interest of time, I will be very, very brief, setting the tone about outlining especially the output 3 under the new project of DA15. As said earlier, this project is intending to do to enhance or deepen the work already done on the measurement side. But of course, in addition to the measurement side of IFFs, this project intends to support a number of selected countries to develop evidence-based policy responses required to curb IFFs. This will be mainly achieved through a number of approaches or channels, such as development of methods and tools that help countries to identify threats and risks of IFF and apply these identified tools. I mean, there's developed tools to not only identify these threats and risks, but classify them and so that they may inform policy design in a way that addresses the identified threats and risks. Of course, threats and risks may come from different angles, including, for example, threats and risks emerging from policy environments, from institutional setup, from legal and regulatory frameworks, that all contribute to creating an enabling environment for IFF to increase in a given countries. From the ECA experience, for example, the premier ECA governance report on institutional architecture of IFF in Africa, one of the key findings is that over 60% of countries in Africa do lack proper institutions, but also proper legal and regulatory framework that help them, that can make them effective in curbing IFFs. So the objective or the output 3 of the project will actually navigate through aspects related to policy and try to support country to not only diagnose and identify these threats, but also support countries to be able to design appropriate policy to be in a better place for effective curbing of IFFs. So more details on this output are in the document and will be sort of finalized and discussed with countries as we move along during the implementation of the projects. I think I can now hand over and submit to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Uzbekistan to make some reactions on the policy implications of IMF. Sorry, on the IMF. I think the IMF is in my head now. Yeah, so I would like to invite our colleagues from Uzbekistan.
Hello, Alec, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me.
Would you introduce yourself first?
Okay, sorry.
You can introduce yourself, sorry.
Yes. My name is Uygun, and I'm a deputy head of Law Enforcement Academy in Uzbekistan. So it's a educational and scientific research institution in our country. We are under the Prosecutor General's office, and I would also like to mention that our FIU in Uzbekistan also has law enforcement type and is under the Prosecutor General's office. So we are under one under the auspices of General Prosecutors are both institutions. So that's why here in Uzbekistan, the Academy is also responsible for SDG 16. We are like serving as a secretariat for the effective governance group, which is led by the Deputy Prosecutor General. So regarding the illicit financial flows, first of all, I want to mention that Academy was a part of the pilot project conducted during the previous, I think almost 3 years, where we have approached 2 methods in measuring commercial related illicit financial flows in Uzbekistan. And I really want to thank Alec, Anastasia for this project that we had together, for the commitment and support. And I think it was very important for us to pilot this in order to at least start something in our countries that will help in measuring, first of all, the illicit financial flows, and then to take certain steps to reduce them going towards the 2030 agenda. So that's why we are really grateful that this project is going to be continued, and we are ready to work together on it. From the policy implication side, I want to mention that this is really, so we have seen now on the screen like outcomes, the main reasons and goals of measuring illicit financial flows, so and trying to reduce them. Definitely here in Uzbekistan we have adopted IML CFT strategy like already two years ago, and now Then there was separate shadow economy action plan, also designed by tax authority. Nowadays, our anti-corruption agency work on new anti-corruption strategy in Uzbekistan. But the main thing I hear were our preliminary results that we have used two methods in measuring commercial related illicit financial flows. I think that we will use it now within the framework of national risk assessment that we are conducting nowadays with the support of different international organizations. So this is our second national risk assessment, and the two preliminary outcomes that we get through the piloting two methods. So this data related to like export-import data, when we compare it with the main Uzbekistan import and export countries, so we get certain data, and we want to continue work on it. And within this national risk assessment, this data will be serve us as a certain also like risk-related area where we have to put our approach more and to try to understand the main like reasons for these differences that we have learned through the implementation of two methods applied within our pilot project. So, and afterwards, in addition, we are thinking about working out, designing the asset recovery strategy in Uzbekistan, or like maybe policy document. So all of these documents will somehow reflect on the outcomes that we have gained already, and furthermore, through the measuring illicit financial flows from other activities, like including from illegal markets, then we will also use them in developing further or in improving further policies in certain directions, like in anti-corruption, in drug-related crimes and organized crimes, in human trafficking area, and so on. So I think this was my main idea. I want to again thank you all and wish you success with the future work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those applications on the policy side, and also the work that has been going on in Uzbekistan. So if there are any other questions from the floor, please raise up your hand, and then we'll give you a chance to speak. We're having a technical hitch with the chat function, but feel free to raise up your hand. Okay. If there are no questions, I'll ask Anastasia. Okay, there is a question from Shotunde. Shotunde, please, you have the floor, and please introduce yourself as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Shotunde Biola. I'm from the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. And I thank all the colleagues that have spoken. I just wanted to tap around the participants if they have experience in illicit wildlife as one of the IFF means, because that's a problem that is very challenging in our jurisdiction, and we're very happy to work closely with colleagues in other jurisdictions, especially the Asian countries, if they have better experience in how they are responding to the illicit wildlife crime in their jurisdiction, because this is also a very important component of illicit financial flow. Thank you very much.
Halik, you are Alec, you're on mute.
Yes, I would like to maybe ask colleagues from UNODC maybe to respond to this, and maybe our colleagues from Bangladesh can give some further insights. But I can see Henan is on. Yeah, so Henan, I give you the floor. You can introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Alik. My name is Hernan Epstein. I work in UNODC. Indeed, we've had some experience in estimating these type of flows, of illicit financial flows for wildlife trafficking. This specifically, we worked together, I think, with Vietnam on this. So I think it's something that is definitely feasible. There are also some parallels with other types of trafficking, which also that are similar in certain ways. But indeed, wildlife has its specificities. So I think it's something we can definitely provide some input. I don't know. I can provide my email, and then we can start the discussion if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's okay. I'll be very happy to have that linkage.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I will put my email on the. There's no chat. That's okay. I will then. Perfect. We can then.
Well, we'll share all the details, Janan, if she's registered. Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Or any other participants that would also share any experiences, particularly maybe regarding reward trafficking related kind of illicit activities, or any other questions that you may have. So it could be just about the project itself, or from some of the issues that the other presenters have actually tried to address in their experience sharing process. Okay, so I don't see any hands. I think we should proceed to the next item, where I'll ask, I think either ECA and UNCTAD to briefly talk about the kickoff global event that will happen in Geneva. So I'll hand it over to both ECA and UNCTAD. I don't know who's going to take lead, whether it's Joe, Amandine, Bojan, or Jama, or Douglas. I leave it up to you.
Hi, Alec. Hi, everyone.
I can see
you hear me
on the
okay?
screen. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, everyone. So my name is Bojan. I'm with UNCTAD. We've agreed that I make a short presentation on this kickoff workshop, kickoff event that will kickstart the whole project. I seem to have a problem with sharing my screen. Just a sec. Maybe not. Let's try. Can you please confirm that you see my screen?
Yes, Bojan, we can see it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Diana. Okay, so in the interest of time, I will be short. Essentially, we would like to share with all the participants and essentially stakeholders in the project these 6 elements of the kickoff meeting to take place. So the first one is obviously the time. It is planned for the 20th and the 21st of September this year. And you can see there's still a question there, like to be confirmed. This was the day that was proposed and agreed within the stakeholders within the project. There was a last-minute request. We're waiting to see if this can actually happen. But for now, the date stays as 20th and the 21st of September. in the UN premises, so there is a Palais des Nations. However, being aware that not everybody could travel, but that all the, let's say, all the contents that will be discussed during this event should be shared and accessible to other participants as well, it has been agreed that this will be also held as a hybrid event. So there will be a link so people could also join in remotely. Now, who will be joining this this kickoff meeting? So essentially, who are the target audience? First of all, it is all the representatives of the beneficiary countries or the pilot testing countries within this project. There are 9 countries from 4 different regions and 4 regional commissions of the UN involved. That means that nominated national focal points, members of the national technical working groups, but then there will also be national and national and regional consultants, obviously project partner staff, which means members or staff members from the UNCTAD and UNODC, from the regional commissions, so ECA, ESCWA, ESCAP, and ECLAC, and ECE as well, to be present in this event. On the organizers' side, we can say that the event, even though it's being hosted by UNCTAD, it is being organized together with ECA as the lead entity and UNODC as co-custodian of the SDG indicator 16.4.1. And because of the variety of the countries we will be covering and inviting to the event, interpretation will be available for the 5 languages, so English, French, Russian, Arabic, and Spanish. Very briefly on why we are essentially meeting. The first one is to launch the development account project, which we are discussing here as well today. So this is essentially an initial event to bring together all the partners, both at national levels, national and international levels, and to strengthen the stakeholder engagement within the project. The second objective is to, as we have written here, to enhance capacity, essentially is to share globally agreed concepts on the illicit financial flows and discuss the measurement or the methods that have been applied already on illicit financial flows, provide examples from different regions to discuss this subject more broadly. And last, but definitely not the least, I think this will be a very central point to this meeting, is to share the existing best practices and experiences or lessons learned from previous projects, both from national perspectives, so from all different countries and the pilot countries that will be involved in the project, but also from the perspective of 2 work streams in the project. One is from the measurement side and the other one clearly from the policy side. So on this point, let me conclude here, but of course we remain at your disposal in case if there are any further questions for that. Alik, over back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Alik, you're on mute. At least I don't hear you. Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, thanks so much for giving some very good information about the coming event. And I think, I believe you continue sharing updates on the meeting as we get close to the day of the meeting. Yeah, I think as a next step, I would just invite Anastasia to we do another Mentimeter before we go to the next part. So
dear participants, Alec,
go ahead.
In this slide, we would like to ask you whether you have got sufficient information about the upcoming IFF project in many regions of this world, whether there was enough understanding about the scope of the project and the outcomes of the project from all participants, including the international organizations and the countries. We see that most participants found the webinar sufficiently helpful in understanding the scope and the goals of the project, which makes us hopeful.
Okay.
I would
So-
also like to remind participants that they can post their questions in the Menti. There is an option to post any question that you would like to ask us in the Menti, and we will address it later. So I can see just one question so far in there. It's not a question, it's a piece of information. However, if you would like to ask us something, you can also do it via this Menti poll. Alik?
Okay, I think yeah, I think that's it. Maybe before, I think there is some understanding, and it's great to hear that there is some good knowledge, or people are finding this webinar very helpful. And of course, there's that pink side which says sufficiently, but it is also putting us in check that maybe we need to do more. So we'll keep sharing a lot of information across the online sites of the regional commissions, as well as our custodian agencies, and we'll keep you informed about most of the events that are going to happen. Maybe before we go to the very last bit, can I just ask, maybe this is just for the record purposes, we just want to have some kind of a group photo, so I will ask everyone to turn on their cameras. Okay, so I can see others still struggling to do that. We don't want to just have.
What is the code for the picture? Smile or something else?
Smile. Though we are measuring illicit activities, we still have room to smile.
Say IFF.
IFF. I think Fazana.
But I don't know how effective it was, because it is showing only 4 people in my screen. So I took that screenshot.
Okay. Whatever you captured, I'm sure I always try to capture something as well. Okay, so thanks very much. Maybe at the end of it all, I think I don't know if there are any other questions from the audience. If there's something we've missed, we just 4 minutes past the scheduled time. Douglas, I can see you have a question. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's not a question. It says a slight alert on the new developments. We've discussed this with my colleagues at UNCTAD. So we now have confirmation that the UN General Assembly will be taking place, and the date collides with the ECOF September workshop. But we had already booked. The booking was confirmed, and it will be very, very hard to reverse. So we will probably in the next few days try to explore with the conference center if there is any room for adjustment depending on who. I mean, depending on whether we think most needed people to participate, we also go to New York for General Assembly. But in any instance, if the room cannot, the room meeting cannot be adjusted, we will go ahead with the agreed date, definitely. But we are trying to explore options whether there is any possibility of probably pushing back by 1 week or 2. But if this is not feasible because the book had already been secured, we will have a firm and final communication to tell you that the meeting will go ahead as planned. I don't know if Boyan has something to add on, but this is the state of the game now.
Yeah, nothing to add, Douglas. Thanks. That's fine. So.
Okay, so if there are no any other additions, I would just like to thank everyone for joining this webinar today. I think it's been a great attendance, considering that, you know, people are working from the offices these days. So this was very nice of you and shows a lot of interest in the topic, and we'll keep you updated, and we'll share the presentations on the web page of this. If you already registered, we already have your email, so we'll just share an update. So thank you very much to all my colleagues who have been very supportive throughout the conception of this webinar, and all the activities that have been done prior to this, and to our presenters. Thank you so much. And our apologies, I think we had a little technical hitch with the chat function, but nonetheless, we've been there. So thanks so much, and we look forward to our further engagement under this project. So thanks so much, colleagues. Have a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.